Hey everybody, it's Yasin, Slow and Rusty. I wanted to share a little video on my 1988 Mazda 323 GT Turbo. This is the sister car to the more famous 1986 to 88-89 323 GTX, which was the all-wheel drive turbo hatchback, two-door hatchback that was very famous on the international rally circuits and also an SCCA and autocross circuits as well. This particular car is quite rare. There was only 700 of these cars that was sold in the US in only 2 years, 1988 and 1989. This particular car that I own has some interesting history. I am only the second owner, and I bought it from the original owners who bought it from Mazda as the very first turbo 323 GT that was sold by Mazda in San Jose. So the car originally came from California. So it's been in California and Colorado all its life. So the car is absolutely 100% rust free. I painted the car about 3 years ago, and it's now a 1989 Porsche Guards red color. The original Mazda red had started to fade, so it was time for a little bit of a cosmetic makeover. So this car actually represents a very cool time in the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s, so a lot of cool stuff came out of Japan in the 80s. A lot of innovative technology, performance, and engineering was in a lot of their products back then, and this car features a lot of that. This car is actually called the BF chassis car, and it has the B6T motor, which is the twin cam 16 valve turbocharged engine, and it packs a pretty healthy punch. Back in 1988, this car was faster than the same model year Porsche 944 Turbo NA, the normally aspirated 944 Porsche. This car would get to 60 faster than the 944, and back then the 944 was about $28,000 brand new. This car was half that price. This car was about $14,000 brand new, which actually was still a lot of money for the 323, which was Mazda's entry model line, even though this was the top of the range for the 323. So this was a really cool car, kind of a forgotten car anymore. You don't see them on the road, especially with the low number that was actually sold in the US. And I've had this car for 5 years. I've put about 35,000 miles on it in the time I've owned it. And I actually bought it for $850 in the thrifty nickel. Saw it and couldn't pass up on it. I was going through some changes personally, financially. Had to sell a Euro spec, AMG spec to E-Class Benz and bought this car. And I felt very fortunate. It was meant to be. I've always loved these cars. I remember when they first came out, and in 1986 when the GTX came out, I have all the original magazine articles and brochures from Mazda, so it was very cool that I was able to find one, especially one that was in pretty good condition and a one-owner car. So that was a neat find, and I have no intent of selling the car, even though I've had some pretty high offers from various friends and people I know to sell the car. I have no intent of selling the car. The suspension on this car from the factory was very, very well engineered. Mazda put a lot of engineering and thought into their suspension designs. The front sway bar from the factory is 30 millimeters alone, and from bone stock the car handles really well. I've enhanced the handling by upgrading to Takiko struts all the way around, polyurethane bushings from Mazda Speed, and Petters out of Australia all the way around, and custom Petters springs from Australia as well, lowering springs. So the car sits low, but very practical, and it's very responsive. Lots of fun to throw around, and definitely is a fun car to drive. Beyond that, I've improved the braking. I've had custom rotors made from Brake Planet. They're drilled and slotted rotors. I'll give you a quick shot of that, front and rear. and also I'm running Access Metal Master pads all the way around with Cork Sport braided stainless brake lines all the way around as well. So the car has very good brakes. Bone stock, the car was 135 horsepower, 132 foot-pounds of torque, at about 7 pounds of boost. Right now, I'm running sorry about that. Right now I'm running 15 pounds of boost, and I'm running a custom 2.5-inch exhaust, and I've replaced some of the factory turbo hoses with aluminum pipe that I made, and then silicone couplings and elbows. I've also upgraded the intercooler to a larger Cork Sport intercooler, and everything in the car runs really well. Even the air conditioning is nice and cold in the middle of summer. I don't skimp when it comes to maintenance. I do an oil change every 1,500 miles, and I make sure I keep the car nice and clean and well maintained. And it's got a Cusco strut brace there, you can see. So everything in the car runs really well. I would estimate it's putting down about 175 horsepower right now, enough to spin the tires in second gear. So the car has great throttle response, it's great power, and my goal in the springtime is to pull this engine out and rebuild it, put in some forged JE pistons, Miata pistons, and a metal head gasket, and go with a full standalone engine management system. And I'm going to play with T25 or T28 turbo and see if I can get between 220, 230 at the front wheels. So I'm looking forward to that little project. I've actually had the head off. This last spring I ran a little bit too much boost, ran it a little bit lean, and it damaged a couple of the exhaust valves, and took the head off, had a friend rebuild the head, put new valve guides and new valve seals, and I ARP studded the head at that time, so I took all the head bolts out and I've had ARP studs in it right now, so I can actually show you some of the damage that was done to, there you go, to one of the valves. That was probably the worst valve, but you can see what running a little too much boost will do. I also running a Reich Racing ECU out of Kitchener, Ontario, so that helps provide the extra fuel for the extra boost. And I'm also running a Walbro 190 LPH fuel pump. So car runs really good, fantastic throttle response, and lots of power through the gears. Definitely enough to keep up with traffic and pass when I need to. But still, my friends call it the sleeper. You don't quite realize what's under the hood until you get on it, and it's about as quick as a 2000 model year Subaru WRX, I would say. And I'll show you the interior real quickly. I've done a few things on the inside. Again, I try to keep it clean, and I've got a Momo leather boot and shift knob, and a Momo steering wheel, and I made out of fiberglass a boost mount for my gauge, my boost gauge. I made a fiberglass mount, and then I integrated it into the into the steering column. And I've also upgraded the seats to Corbeau seats, and also made the sliders and rails for it here at home. I can show you the back. The interior it's got of course the GT spec interior. It's a little bit nicer interior than the regular 323 LX, DX, and also the SE models. My friends kind of laugh because this car doesn't have anything power. I call it the peasant package. It's got all wind-up windows and manual locks, but everything works great. Everything works fine for me, and I don't mind that at all. It does have power mirrors on it, and other than that, the car runs really good. No complaints at all. So just thought I would share that with you guys. I will tell you that I have as much fun driving this car as its sister car, or brother car over here, which is my 1989 911 Turbo which is well over 420 horsepower. So both cars put an equal smile on my face when I drive them. So with that, I just wanted to share some thoughts on this car, kind of a forgotten car and something you don't see very often, and surprisingly there's not a lot of video footage on this car online, so kind of a neat way to remember and pay some homage to some great technology and engineering that came out of Japan in the 80s and continues to still come out of Japan. So with that, please leave me some feedback and hope you enjoy the video, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.